It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the New Mexico Lobos Associate Head Volleyball Coach, Coach April Sanchez. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show today, Brandon.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
It's an interesting story, at least for me. I initially thought I would get my doctorate in history. I wanted to be a history professor. And the first opportunity I had to become a history professor was on a 2-year college campus. And they just so happened to need an assistant volleyball coach. And so I knew if I said yes to doing both, that I'd get what I at the time wanted, which was the history job. And so I said I was willing to do both. They hired me. And after the first year, I said, how do I do this full time? Like this coaching is amazing. So I started off as almost a history professor and then took a little bit of a turn to volleyball professor, if you will.
What was your playing experience like getting to go to college and getting to play collegiate volleyball?
Oh, I loved it. I'm a small town Colorado girl. Born and raised, and I loved sport growing up, and so that very much was my dream as a young girl, was to be able to go compete in college. And my first love was actually basketball. And it wasn't until about my junior year in high school I had a really good high school volleyball coach, Becky Howlett, and she just changed how I loved volleyball, and so that course corrected.
What was that experience like getting to go play college volleyball at a community college and getting to wear that uniform?
It was a fantastic experience. Teal Hemphill was my coach the first year there at Lamar, which we were the run and lopes. And my first year was actually difficult. I had a ACL tear. And so I was out my first year. And so a lot of it was rehab, but I had a great team and I rehabbed a ton and came back for my second year of volleyball as a sophomore. So I was at least able to play that second year there. And I loved every minute of it. I would do it all over again.
After your college time, what was it like getting into coaching and becoming an assistant coach at Colorado Northwestern Community College?
I think you grow a ton from like, this is how I was coached. This is how I played, to what kind of coach do I want to be? And so my first year, it was just asking questions and learning a ton from my head coach at the time of how to teach skills. And so being able to play something can be very different from being on the other end of how do you help someone actually do that something. So my first year, I just felt like it was tons of learning and trying to do as much as I can.
What was that transition like for you from going from being an assistant coach there to making that jump to become a head coach?
Great question. For me, I think there's this kind of different relationship, I think, as an assistant where you're connected to the athletes. They probably have a little bit more fun with you and in certain areas because you're not the one having to make these tough decisions. But that transition was having to be more of a leader and making tough decisions. Like, I think as an assistant, you can have an opinion and these really good ideas. And then when you become this head coach, you really have to own all those ideas. And some are really good and some maybe don't go quite as, have a shift at least. And sometimes that relationship, it was a different relationship when I became a head coach. But I loved it. I thought leadership and relationships were something that took me a while to navigate a little in the difference.
While being that head coach there, what were some of your biggest accomplishments?
Yeah, I think for me, it was 2 years there. And one big accomplishment was my first year. We were like, as an assistant, we went 0-30, which is really tough. It's really tough not to win one match. That is really hard. And by the end of my second year, we had won 6 matches. And I was so immensely proud of those young women and that team, because until you go through never having won, it is brutal. And to be able to take a program and have them win the most they've ever won. I mean, it was just a night and day difference. And I think for me, I was really grateful because I had leadership that carried over in those 2 years. But I think for me, that was the 6 wins, having 2 individuals have conference recognition, and most of all, just the young women that were there that committed to something really tough. And I know it wasn't easy, but that they came out and they gave that program one of the best finishes, to my knowledge, at that time that they had in over a decade.
For you, what was that transition like, going from being a head coach at a community college to then becoming an assistant coach?
Yeah, it's kind of easy sometimes to say, hey, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And so making that transition back to, I went to Idaho State, and I knew the head coach there, Rick Reynolds. He was good to work for. I thought he gave me quite a bit of authority in certain areas. And so it was nice, actually, for me. It was nice to almost go to a space where I had the ability to ask somebody else what they thought, versus sometimes as the head coach, I felt like I had to have it together. I had to have all the answers and I had to have it figured out. And so I actually liked this ability to go backwards and become like this learner again. And that was something I really enjoyed. So for me, I very much enjoyed this assistant role and helping somebody else chase like the dreams of the program. Obviously, I shared that, but I enjoyed it. It allowed me to become a learner without this pressure of like having to feel like I had it figured all out.
What were some of the things that you took during your time as a head coach over to when you became back as an assistant coach?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I think for me, it would be, and I say this in a good way, I have some of the athletes I coached at the 2-year school. They've come to my matches now as me as a coach for the Lobos. Like it's beautiful to see that almost 10 years later, they're still involved and active. So I think for me, the lesson is just how you treat people. Like when people feel like you have their back and you're going to go hard for them, I think they reciprocate that and they show up. I always had these teams where I was notorious for staying late, and whatever I could do to get more than one win was like always my goal as head coach. And I think the athletes at least saw how hard I worked for them. And I always felt that from them in practice, that they were always going to work hard for me. So I felt like I learned early on how you treat people, and making them feel like $1 million is really important, that you have their back.
How was that experience like for you, getting to have that national coaching experience and getting to coach on the women's national team?
I actually was a tech analyst, a voluntary just tech analyst. Every year, the national team does what they call an open program now. And it used to be essentially tryouts for all the college-aged women, at the time called data volley. It's since changed, but you literally are coding every time somebody touches the volleyball. So if it's a serve, you code on a scale of 1 to 5 what it was. And then you're coding the pass and the set and the hit and the block and the dig. And so you're just doing that all day. So I didn't coach as much as I was more on the tech side, just helping gather information for the coaches. So
what was that experience like, getting to come to New Mexico and getting to first become an assistant coach?
Gratitude is probably like the first feeling I feel. I didn't know my head coach prior to this well, John Newman Gonchar. I had met him. I had visited the USA gym for 3 weeks in the summer of 2017. I just wanted to observe and learn. And then I was working these skills at the time, data volley. And so fast forward in 2019, I was looking for another job. I wanted to continue gaining experience and knowledge. And so New Mexico came on the map because I got a phone call from my head coach, John. And I was just so grateful to be considered out of all the pool of people that I know he had. Because if you know anything about John, like, he does his homework. He has major sleuthing skills, such as yourself, and he has a great mind at volleyball. It's something that I'm so grateful. I think for me, it's like I felt like he took a chance on me, and there's just always going to be an immense gratitude that I have towards him for doing that. So gratitude is one of the first feelings, and just excitement. I think I've learned as an assistant that it's not so much where you coach at. That's so important. I think it's really easy to think, hey, if I just coach at these big places, it's going to make me this great coach, versus who you work with every day, who influences you, who's helping you to grow. That has so much influence. And so for me, after talking with John and learning about his vision, and for him, I think every coach wants to do really good things. They want to do well on volleyball court. They want to do well in the classroom. But how John wants to accomplish that, I love. It's relationship based. It's with a professional attitude from both coach and staff, and it's value based, and that's just why I love it, and I refuse to leave, and he can't get rid of me. So
What was that like returning back onto the college volleyball circuit and getting to coach?
it was good. I loved it. I technically never left. Anytime you like when I would work with USA volleyball, it was just in more of a voluntary capacity. So it'd be a weekend that you would go help them. I did a high performance clinic for them, but it wasn't a full-time job. So I'd always been at the coaching level, and then definitely would have opportunities to help with at the time they called it a high performance team.
While as the assistant coach, what were some of your biggest accomplishments?
Great question. I here at New Mexico, I'm our defensive coordinator, and we're notorious for our defense. We spent a lot of time in the number one spot this year in the Mountain West Conference for opponent hitting percentage, blocks and digs percent. We were ranked nationally for quite some time as well. So I'm very proud in that our defense they're gritty and they're tough here. And that's for me a proud accomplishment. That's part of my job, but just trying to get better at that every year. And I think on the other half of that is the people I work with, the athletes that we have. They allow me to push them hard. And I think I'm really notorious in our gym for always pushing on going with two hands to make really big plays. And so it's definitely something that will push them outside their comfort zone, and they know that. But what I think is special, and it's not maybe a statistical gauge you can always measure, but the people we have in this gym, they allow me to push hard. And I think that's a reason why we're annually one of the better defensive teams, if not the best, in the Mountain West, is because we have the people that want to be great at what they do. So I'm proud of how we do, as well as the people that we're doing it with.
What was that experience like, getting promoted to become the associate head coach?
So special. It wasn't something that I ever necessarily said, hey, this is what I want. To be quite honest, I've just always had more of a mentality of, hey, work hard, give something all you have, put your head down and just work even harder. And so I can't say that it was something that I thought, hey, this is why I came here and this is what I want, as much as I was just so honored when that opportunity was given to me by my head coach. And I think if anything, it gives me more motivation to, hey, I got to get better in these areas. And now I got to be a better leader. I got to be a better model. And so I feel like it's just kind of up the ante for me.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
Yeah. Gosh, the Mountain West is fantastic volleyball. So there's New Mexico. And then when you go north in Colorado, we have Air Force Academy. Then you go further north, there's Colorado State. You go into Wyoming at the University of Wyoming. You go over to Idaho and you play Boise State. Then you go down, you got Utah State. Then you can go into Nevada, you have UNLV. And then in California, we're going to have Fresno State, we have San Diego State, we have San Jose State. So it's this massive conference. And University of Reno. So 11 teams in this huge geographic area, but every night is this amazing match that is incredibly difficult.
What is it like getting to go and to Air Force Academy and getting to coach against them versus going to, let's say, Boise State?
Oh, good question. I think for us, it's like the Mountain West has a great feel for all of the gyms. So like all the gyms have a really unique experience. So Air Force, they have fantastic facilities. They have this TerraFlex court, which is top notch. Like those are what international volleyball teams play on. And it's a little tight. So it's like the fans are on the sideline, and then imagine having all these cadets dressed out in their uniform, just cheering for the home team. Like it has a great vibe. And then you go to Boise State, and their gym, I would say, is kind of vintage. It's a great hardwood floor, like you can smell it, right? And then you have only fans really more so on one side, but they have this great band that's always having hype. So I think what I love about the Mountain West is every gym is just such a unique playing experience. And it's incredibly fun. I mean, I think we have our advantages at home, but every gym I love walking into because it's so different to play in.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Boise State and Frisco and even Air Force comes to play at home?
Yeah, come to play us. They encounter Lobo fans, and we were averaging, I want to say, under about 1,000 fans for our home matches, which is fantastic. And for us, what's really cool is you have a lower bowl and then an upper bowl. And so our fans, they love being in the upper bowl. They love being on this lower bowl, but you have high school teams, middle school teams coming out and supporting us. So, I mean, you can kind of see them dangling through the rails cheering for us. The fans get in it with howling. When we come out to the court, they're going to cheer on game point. I mean, the Lobo fans are absolutely incredible to have. So it's loud, it's rowdy, and one of my favorite things is there just so many young faces of girls and boys in the crowd.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to help to build for the New Mexico volleyball program?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know that we have a perfect formula. Yeah. You know, we're always trying to get better at that, but I really love how we go about it. And it's going to be hunger, like drive. It's going to be gratitude and kindness. Like those are going to be our core values. And 5 years later, like those are the people we recruit. Those are the values we want our athletes to walk and talk and be about when they're outside of our gym. And so, yeah, it's about finding John Aloisi. It's about finding really good people who happen to be good volleyball players. And so I think that's, at least for us, some of that secret sauce. And 5-year veterans like Shushu Guerca and Caitlin Biasu, who just finished their careers here. It starts with them, and they model that behavior all the way down. So yeah, our core values are kind of the heartbeat, at least, of how we want to walk and talk, not just with our team, but in every aspect with other people.
What are some of the things that you look at in those prospective college volleyball players looking to come to New Mexico?
Great. Yeah, I think we're always going to look at their skills, you know, and kind of whatever those skills are that pertain to their position. So I think outside of the volleyball skill, it's more, hey, what kind of teammate are you? Are you a teammate that on your worst day, you can still be a good teammate for others? So, hey, even if April isn't playing really well on the court, is April going to be a great teammate to everybody around her? Or is she going to drag people down? And so our big thing here, I think that is, maybe it's not unique. I think how we go about it and how we talk and develop teammates here is unique, but we want people that want to be here on their best day, on their worst day, and that can find ways to bring enthusiasm and excitement to their team, even if they're not performing at their best.
For those potential prospects, what does that official visit look like at New Mexico?
Yeah, there's, you know, every team has kind of their own signature on what they do. I think for us, it really just comes down to we want them to have a good vibe with us. So we're humble. Like, remember our core values? You got humility, you have hunger, you got kindness and gratitude. And so I think with that, we try to always make sure it's authentic to who we are. And so for us, it's about spending time together, and it doesn't have to be, you know, anywhere fancy or doing super fun things. It's just, I want them to have a good vibe for me, for all of our staff, for our team. And I think for us, that's what we do well is, it's volleyball, but there's this relationship aspect. And the way that you do that is by getting to know someone. And so for us on visits, it's just about making sure we set up enough time where we can get really good vibes, essentially, and an opportunity to make a connection that isn't forced, so that, hey, this is the person I've been talking to on the phone. This is the same person. It's not this shock. So that's what is most important to us when we do our visits.
As a coach, what is it like getting to see your freshmen put on that New Mexico jersey for the first time versus the seniors putting on that New Mexico red jersey for the last time?
Gosh. You're gonna make me tear up, Brandon. It's so special. You're like excited for them because everybody's working so incredibly hard in the gym. So their first moment out there, it's like, man, they look like $1,000,000. I hope they feel like $1,000,000. This is their moment. They're ready. And then, for example, this year with I'm going to use again. Her name's Kate Biasu. She is leading our school as the all-time point scorer, the all-time. She's holding the all-time kill record. She's had a fabulous career here. And so watching her put her jersey on for the last time, I mean, that it literally gives me goosebumps and brings tears to my eyes because I don't just see that one match, I'm seeing 5 years of her being in the gym every single day for one match. And it's incredibly special. And so yeah, one I think gives me all this excitement, and then one brings me a little bit more nostalgia and happiness, but with an edge of bittersweet.
What is it like getting to see those seniors go on and put on that jersey for the last time and then get to put on their professional volleyball jersey for the first time, whether it's Athletes Unlimited or the national route?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think as a coach, something that's really special. It's not always easy, right? There's plenty of, you get a front row seat to them achieving their dreams. And so I think in that, like, it's really special that you were part of it in some way, like you helped in some small way, but like just to see the satisfaction on their face, knowing, hey, I am doing what I set out to do and what I dreamt for myself. I love it. I love knowing that maybe I helped in just some small way. And so for me, it's extremely worth it. We have 3 athletes right now that is their plan. And I honestly think when they send me the photo of their professional jersey, I'm gonna like tear up and cry over my phone.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those players go on and take the things that they learned from you into becoming a coach after their playing career?
So special, Brandon. I think it come off sometimes in our gym as like, I'm not going to say tough, but like, oh, April, like she's always on me, right? That's my job. But I think I'm a big softie the longer I've been doing this. And like, what's it like? We had an athlete graduate from here 2 years ago, and she's now coaching at one of the local clubs here. And she sent me a photo of her practice whiteboard, and it is almost identical to how we would like structure practice, and it has the focuses, like, or maybe foci, right? But like it is almost identical. Like you can just tell she learned a ton as a Lobo. And so like it just makes me proud that something I enjoy doing. And there are some tough days, but like something I'm excited and I'm enthusiastic to see them and their faces every day. Like it makes me happy when they're reaching back out and they are as excited now in a coaching role, like that they get excitement and enjoyment from doing something that I got to do with them every day. So I absolutely love it. It makes me incredibly happy to hear about them coaching or using something, or, hey, I remember this quote from practice once, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm glad that it impacted you just beyond volleyball itself.
What are some of your future plans for the volleyball program moving forward?
We're always looking to get better. I don't know if it's a motto, but my head coach and I always talk about, how do we get one more day? How do we get one more block? We're really big into being really good about the small things over a period of time. And so I think that's something I'm always looking at. So right now is the time where our season has ended. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to do my research. I'm a history major, remember? So I love this, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to break down our defense and what can we be doing better and how do we do that? And that's the goal, is to continue to get better at defense. Our offensive coordinator, Matt, he's always working hard on offense. How do we get one more kill is typically his question. And then from the recruiting side, how do we continue to find more athletes that are going to be great Lobos? And so that's the fun part, at least, of recruiting now, where we're bringing in athletes, or athletes will be coming in next fall. And we're excited to get them going with how we do things here. So how do we get 1% better is literally the question I wake up answering every day.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college volleyball?
Yeah, great question. Advice for first year volleyball athletes, correct? Learn a ton. Be humble. You're competing against athletes that have tons of experience in the gym, and something we talk about is staying curious. So if you can get mad at things, you can be sad, but like find a way to get back to being curious and asking questions, because that's going to make you a great learner. And the best athletes we know are some of the best learners. They want to know how to improve. So I think that's my big thing is stay curious, learn a ton.
What advice would you give those senior volleyball players out there looking to play on the professional level, whether it's Athletes Unlimited, the national team, or overseas?
Oh, great advice. I mean, I don't even know if I would say try, just put yourself out there. I think that's, you never know. Like, we have a saying in our gym for defense, and that is, you never know unless you go. And kind of this idea of like, hey, can I get that ball up? I don't know if I stand here, I have to go try. And so I think that's something where, hey, if that's your dream, go chase it, go see if it's possible. And maybe you're like, maybe it materializes a little differently for you than it does someone else, but that's okay. Just go for it.
What advice would you give those college volleyball players out there looking to get into coaching after their playing career?
I always tell the Lobos when they graduate, they better call me. Okay. So if there's anyone that is interested, call me or reach out to me. I think it's reaching out, especially to your coaches, like let them know, hey, this is something I'm interested in. And I think that's eventually how you can find opportunities, is coaches are really well connected. So the other big one I'd say is, it kind of goes back to staying curious, Brandon, because I think this is something I learned is I didn't have this really decorated career. I guess I can't say I wish I did. Maybe at the time I wish I had, but like, it's my life. It's shaped me into who I am. So now I'm fine with it. But early on, I wasn't. And I always just felt like, man, if I had just been such a better volleyball player, I'd probably be a better coach. And now I look at it and I realize because I was so curious and hungry to learn how to become a really good coach, I became a coach that got better over time. And so I think when you're making that transition from player to coach, remember, it's not about you anymore, or always what worked for you as a player. You have to be really curious. You have to know that athlete that you're helping to coach. You have to see and I think ask more questions, because that's coaching, is you're finding out what works for each individual athlete. And I can't always approach it with, well, when I played, it was this way. Like, I have to be like, okay, well, what's going to work for them and what's going to work for them now? Does that make sense?
What advice would you give those future coaches out there that are looking to get into coaching, whether it's becoming a head coach, associate head coach, or even just assistant coach?
Ask tons of questions and talk to people. I wish I would have done that much sooner. Like, if I look back and it's one of those things where people are like, what would you have done different? I would have asked more questions. I wouldn't have pretended to have all the answers. And so things like when they do right now, people are gearing up for the Final Four for volleyball and the AVCA convention. And it's this great time to meet friends and people you don't know and just ask questions. And so I would go to these seminars and people would say, hey, reach out to me if you have questions. And for like the first 4 years, I never did. And now I've learned, you got a question, ask it, because it could be really helpful, not just for me, but for the athletes I coach. And so, I'd say ask questions, talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the New Mexico Lobos volleyball program on social media?
Website there. So golobos.com. And then it has all of our Instagram and Twitter handles on it as well.
Thank you again, Coach April Sanchez, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the New Mexico Lobos as the associate head coach.
Hey, thank you so much, Brandon. Thanks for having me today.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you'll find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach April Sanchez, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.